Jayadeva Ranade warns China has become a hardening state, even as the India-China relationship warms up again. With Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Beijing in August, direct flights restarting and visas returning. Meanwhile, under the détente, the Washington Post reports the India-China line of actual control is shifting in Beijing's favour. What can history teach us about the relationship between two Asian giants? And why will India not trust China again? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. To discuss this and more, it's a great privilege to be joined by Jayadeva Ranade, Centre for China Analysis and Strategy President. He's also former National Security Advisory Board member. A very warm welcome to the show today. Your book, China, the Hardening State and the Impact on the Region, it came out when Narendra Modi actually visited China this year. Should we see the reset between India and China in this light?
I would segregate the reset from the overall policies of the Chinese. So the reset, actually, I wouldn't call it that. I would call it a temporary tactical adjustment, is to ease the pressure on the borders, on the troops, because keeping 50,000 to 60,000 troops deployed in close proximity is not a recipe for guaranteeing peace. So our intention is to try and reduce tensions on the border and see that there is no fighting and we can resolve things through discussions. Chinese, of course, have at the moment tentatively agreed to that, but we are seeing a lot of build-up taking place on the other side, or military-related build-up in terms of airfields, railways, roads, etc. Since you did mention the Washington Post report, I would disagree with that. I don't think it's a case of shifting of the line as much as it's a case of our holding the line, but the Chinese continuing to build up the defense infrastructure along the line and on their side, indicating that they're probably getting ready for action as and when they decide to have another round.
On that theme, in Foreign Policy, historian Tan Sen, based in China, writes, this recurring pattern, alternating between optimism and confrontation, has replayed itself for decades. The latest loop may well follow the same trajectory, ending once again in border skirmishes or diplomatic friction. So you were basically saying this, Mr. Ranade. Is that what you expect to happen then? And how soon? Given the build-up that you can see on the Chinese side?
I would say rather than optimism, there's hope that things can cool down. But yes, I do expect there to be more confrontations with the Chinese, instigated by the Chinese. Military infrastructure that we have built up is now more robust than what it was. So I don't think there'll be much scope for a push and pull kind of situation. It will be more of a standoff that we will see. Likelihood of more, shall I say, minor skirmishes, until both sides decide that that's not worth it and we need to focus on just moving ahead rather than that. So let's hope that happens.
Along the line of actual control, it wasn't always like this. In 1950, India was the first non-communist country to officially recognize the People's Republic of China, pushing for its replacement of the ROC Taiwan at the United Nations. In 1951, India didn't sign the Japan Peace Treaty because the PRC and Russia were excluded. In 1954, India signed a peace treaty with China to break its isolation following the Korean War. And under the 1954 Panjshir Treaty, India recognized Tibet was part of China. Despite all this, relations culminated in the 1962 Sino-Indian War. How significant, firstly, was India's support to China? And then how did it end up in the war? How did China lose and betray India's trust?
I would go with what you just said about betraying India's trust. If we pedal back to that period that you just mentioned, Pandit Nehru, who was our Prime Minister at that time, felt that it is advisable and it is the interest of peace and the region to pull China out of an isolation or from being under pressure of the major powers. And that is why he did reach out to the Chinese.
So why did they want that?
He was a visionary. And he felt that, if these two major powers could get along, then, Asia itself, as he looked at it, would prosper. That was his underlying thing. And he persisted in that view. There were contrary voices within the Indian government also, pointing out as to what China is doing in Tibet and how it would not be prudent to recognize. He didn't agree with that. In fact, he got a bit upset when that was put forward.
So he was a bit idealistic?
He was idealistic, definitely, and a visionary, I would call it. But Mao Zedong had signaled way back in, I think, 1940 or 45, in an essay, that China will be the sole guarantor of security for this entire region.
As far back as that?
Yes. Whereas there was an essay called On Contradiction, which is where he spelled it out. But as far as we are concerned, Nehru felt that, there's enough room for all the countries. So obviously this was in contradiction. And the Chinese stuck to their point. When the communist forces had done, with overcoming the KMT and the Japanese, etc., and moving forward, at that time, Mao Zedong told the field armies to continue their march up and take over Tibet, which is what they did. So they just moved on up. Deng Xiaoping, in fact, was the political commissar of that army. And they came up and took over Tibet, destroyed the monasteries, etc.
So that was in 1950?
In 50.
India obviously believed in this friendship, but China only did so, or appeared to do so, in public. It believed that this support from India was simply tactical for it. It exploited that incredible support. We want to show now the reaction of Jawaharlal Nehru, voiced by historian Sarah Payne. Watch.
There are not many instances in history where one country, that is India, has gone out of her way to be friendly and cooperative with the Chinese government and people, and then for the Chinese government to return evil for good, and even to go to the extent of committing aggression and invade our sacred land.
Why did China, do you think, betray India? Was it simply, as you said, to become the sole big power in Asia, or were there other, factors?
I think that was the major factor, but let me add to the clip that you showed. There was another little incident, which is the Bandung conference, where Nehru saw to it that the Chinese were invited. Zhou Enlai was the premier, he came, and Nehru took him around and introduced him to all the other leaders. Now, when you do that, at least in India, we consider that as an act of friendship, or trying to show togetherness and, see that the other person is welcome. Zhou Enlai got quite offended, and he felt that, he told Mao when he came back, he said, what does Nehru think? I mean, he's got to introduce me to these guys, I'm the premier of China. And Mao has sent a telegram to Stalin after that. They used to communicate quite often, saying that this is what Zhou said, and this puts a limit on India-China friendship in the future. So I think it's relevant how these things play a role.
A cultural misunderstanding.
It's a misunderstanding, but Zhou Enlai was a Mandarin too, and he should have understood it better.
Right. And so how does all this history now change the calculus for India? I mean, we talked about sort of boom and bust, sort of hope. You said not optimism, hope, and then confrontation. What's the accumulative effect of this on India and how it views China?
Well, India has, I think, finally accepted that China's policies will or could be, not in our interest, and that we do need to build up a defensive capability against the Chinese. So both the countries are building up. And here I must add that with China, as it has grown stronger, its territorial claims on India have increased and begun to be enforced a bit more. So the whole of Ladakh was claimed by them, now openly since 2000, or actually slightly earlier, since 2013, and then little portions in the rest of the north, including Arunachal. So this is going to be an area of contention. And unless that is decided, I expect this kind of confrontation, skirmishes, maybe even outbreak of serious hostilities to continue. And that is, it's a sign of Chinese strength. We have to watch out for China. We have a common unsettled border, and that's an issue.
Okay, and now I'm pleased to be joined by our second guest, Namrata Hasija, Center for China Analysis and Strategy Research Fellow and former MOFA Taiwan Visiting Fellow. Namrata, a very warm welcome to Taiwan Talks today. So we have viewers who point out that the ROC Taiwan has the same claims. For example, Arunachal Pradesh. How do you reconcile this with the present Taiwan?
I think, these claims were when ROC was actually there in the mainland. This year, we are actually celebrating 30 years of India-Taiwan relations, of, when the offices were set up in 1995 in each other's countries. I think the relationship has come a long way. There is a mutual understanding, and the understanding is also for the fact that we kind of have the same aggressor, that is, China. If you look at the trade now, it's almost 10 times of what it was, when it all started. And it's not just trade now. We have a lot of other exchanges that are happening, from education to the latest agreement that we have signed on labor, India and Taiwan. And then Taiwan now figures in this Viksit Bharat that our Prime Minister Modi has announced, because Taiwan is also pitching in when it comes to semiconductor. There has been a deal signed with PSMC and Tata's. Little things we are doing, which actually is not in limelight. We also have a MOU when it comes to organic products. Our tea farmers in Northeast, they are actually buying tea processing machines from Taiwan. So it has come a long way, because Taiwan has also changed, isn't it?
Yes,
from 1949 to 2025.
Yeah, since becoming a democracy, or even since the KMT came to Taiwan, are you aware of any statements from the ROC about enforcing the claims on Indian territory?
No, I haven't come across. Even when we have dialogues, I think when they are closed door, they do talk about that. The claims really don't matter now. The problem is amending the constitution, because it's just there in the constitution.
Yeah. It's also true in the South China Sea. The current Taiwan administration, as you said, is bound by the constitution. The threat from China is that if there's a change to the constitution, this is saying that
yes,
there's a declaration of independence. They might be able to say
exactly.
that secession from China.
Exactly, and that's where I was coming from. The 1992 consensus was somewhere where, both sides kind of decided, okay, there is only one China, that's Republic of China from here. And from there it was, there's only one China, that's People's Republic of China. Now, if the constitution changes, it's, like you said, it's an open declaration of independence. And that, of course, will have a reaction from the Chinese, right? And it's not going to be the reaction that you saw when Pelosi visited Taiwan. It's going to be way more than, and why lead things to that, right?
It's too dangerous.
It's too dangerous, yes.
Tim Marshall in Prisoners of Geography, he speaks about China wanting to make both the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean basically its seas, rather like how the US straddles the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. What do you make of that concept?
Well, I would tend to agree. The Chinese do look at the two as a continuum, and they feel that they need dominance, definitely in the South China Sea, stretching out into the Indian Ocean and onwards. And that is borne out actually by the manner in which the PLA Navy fleets, that's the People's Liberation Army Navy fleets, are moving all the way up through the Indian Ocean to the Bering Strait. So every captain of a PLA Navy ship today, warship today, has traversed through the Indian Ocean and become familiar with it. Secondly, they've got a flotilla of roughly 4 to 5 ships off Aden, so-called anti-piracy operations all the time throughout the year. So they've acquired a presence. They're not showing any military activity or aggression, even against the pirates when they're attacked. Others come and bail them out, but they are present. So I would say that they certainly have signaled their intention or ambition, but they're far from reaching it. The Indian Navy is...
They also don't have a border, do they?
No, there's no border.
Okay.
There's no border. On the maritime seas, of course, it's open.
But they have, so it's not a parallel with the US.
No.
I mean, you can say the Pacific, okay, but the Indian Ocean, so they simply have decided that they will...
That they will be...
dominate the Indian Ocean.
They'll be present in that. Domination will come later. This is the first step.
Okay.
Like in the South China Sea, they've started, taking over island by island or islet by islet, building airfields, expanding the islands. And there I must point out, without any opposition. I mean, the other powers have just sort of let it happen. I think they could have resisted. But from the Chinese point of view, the way I look at it, this for them is a first step to create a backyard to be able to contest or take on the United States. And that is how they're looking at it. Similarly, the manner in which they are getting involved in the management or upgrading or building of ports around the world. There are about 93 odd ports that they're involved in and about 30 odd in Southeast Asia alone. So if push comes to shove, and if they're able to get the concurrence or get the host country to acquiesce, then their warships have access to those ports. So I think it's a long-term plan, but certainly it's there. Naturally, other countries are taking countermeasures, including India, to prevent such a situation from happening.
Okay. Mr. Ranade, so how do you view Taiwan's situation in the face of China's, constant diplomatic, military, economic coercion? We've heard, of course, this date, 2027, mentioned as a possibility. What do you make of that date? How dangerous is this period now for Taiwan?
I would not put too much weight on the date itself. But certainly the Chinese are preparing for a takeover of Taiwan through various means. I mean, there is a military option. They have been carrying out landings along the coast in China. They've been sending ships here. They've been sending aircraft here in a sort of quasi-blockade attempt. So I think there is military pressure. There's overt military pressure being applied on Taiwan. Apart from that, they're also applying diplomatic pressure by seeing to it that Taiwan's diplomatic space shrinks and the number of countries that recognize it become fewer. So there are various kinds of pressures coming in. Economic pressures, the manner in which China can apply them have not yet started, but that would be the next step, I suppose. So there are a lot of instruments that they're trying. I think Xi Jinping is hoping that once his forces are ready, and I don't think they're ready just now, which is why I said 27 need not be the red line. I think he's still getting his forces ready. The amphibious operations are difficult operations. The way we see his generals changing, maybe he's getting better and more competent generals, at least in his view, into position. So we might see, I'm not saying the pressure he will relent on pressure, but you might see it ramping up around that time, around 27 and onwards, and then one doesn't know. The other variable is the US attitude on the situation. Is the US or will the US come in to stop China or to assist Taiwan, either way?
It's more uncertain under Trump, obviously, because Biden outright publicly said 4 times.
Exactly, but Trump hasn't said a word. However, if we listen to the comments made by the military defense officials, they're preparing or gearing up for a situation in the South China Sea. So I think it's iffy, but I don't see anything happening in the near term. Though I would add one caveat here, that I think the way and the rate at which China is growing militarily and in diplomatic influence, trying to spread its economic tentacles all around, the time for the US to really step in and contain China, if that's their intention, has shrunk. And they don't have more than 3 to 4, 5 years max in which to try and stop it.
Right. And on that, in terms of military exercises or preparation, Namrata, we've seen the 2025 Malabar exercise, and I believe this was the first time that the Indian Navy sailed from India and then to the Pacific and to Guam. Was that significant? Was that symbolic?
I think, if you look at the last 10 years and how India has been part of Indo-Pacific and Quad, I think India has taken a lot of initiative when it comes to, modernizing our Navy. To, if you look at all the PIB reports, you can list a lot of initiatives that India has taken when it comes to securing Indo-Pacific. Sagar is one such. We also have an arrangement where we are sharing information with our partner countries. And so we have done initiatives. And I think Malabar exercises is one of, a very important initiative that India has come forward and we have been doing now. It's not the first time that Malabar exercises has taken. Yes, like you mentioned, probably the first time that we have sailed up to the Pacific. So I think that's a very positive, development.
How far do you think India might go if there was a Taiwan crisis? And, does this Malabar exercise slightly change, nudge the needle a little bit?
I think India would support Taiwan as far as India can, because India first has to secure itself, right? We share a really long border with China, and let's not forget that. Unlike the US, we do with the Chinese. And I think India has taken initiatives when it comes to supporting Taiwan, maybe not in the way that you are talking about, especially the exercises, but we have shown open support, which you didn't see for a long time. How about Prime Minister Modi's tweet when President Lai Ching-te took over? That's the first from a sitting Indian Prime Minister for a Taiwanese elect president. So these are also signs of support. And when there was a train accident, for the first time, MEA actually condoled the deaths in Taiwan, and MEA tweeted from the official handle. And then Taiwanese citizen getting a Padma Shri award. So I think let's not just look at the larger optics and always feel that, okay, unless, India commits to, getting in when it comes to their military, when there's a Taiwan crisis, but we have openly done many symbolic gestures and also taken steps.
In the diplomatic space,
yes,
and
of course.
Economic.
And I think that's huge. I mean, people tend to ignore that, and they always focus on whether you'll come to defend Taiwan. But these are really open support. And despite having a backlash from the Chinese when he actually tweeted congratulating President Lai Ching-te. So I think these are also very important steps that India has done to show support to Taiwan. So
That's
I think
and Taiwan also has to show its own willingness for self-defense. Mr. Ranade, final question. With the Quad, India summit was meant to be held, but it was postponed. And the latest appears to be Australia's PM saying perhaps it could be held in January. Do you think that doubts over Trump's commitment to the grouping are substantiated?
I think, yes. There was one initial meeting just after his inauguration, if you recall, which everyone sort of raised everyone's hopes. But since then,
with
nothing.
Marco Rubio, with the foreign ministers.
Yes, exactly. But since then, nothing. And Trump's policy after that, in Trump 2, the way he's imposed tariffs on all countries has upset all his allies, and including treaty allies. Japan is not happy with it. Europe is not happy with it. The Australians are not happy with it. We, of course, are not happy with it. So I think there's a lot of turbulence in the air, if I may put it. Quad is one issue. Now the question is, what exactly is his policy towards China? Quad will depend on that. On the one hand, he's having a conversation with Xi Jinping. We don't know really what has happened there. They haven't released a readout, either of them, I mean a detailed readout. On the other hand, from what has come out, it seems that the US has been very, very keen on striking a deal with the Chinese, who played hardball, as was to be expected. So I think there are a lot of factors in the air, and Trump visiting India at this time when he hasn't decided on the tariffs is also, has put this into a bit of a doubt. So we'll have to wait and see as to where Quad goes. I mean, the first thing is U.S. attitude towards China and U.S. policy towards China. Now, regardless of what that is, I would say that, Japan, Philippines, India, these countries would have their own policy because they would like to safeguard their sea lanes of communication, many of which, at least in India's case, I think 60 to 70% of our trade goes through the South China Sea, Japan even more so. So these countries will need to protect that and ensure their neutrality, which means checking Chinese aggressive designs. There is still scope for evolution to take place in Quad. Whether Quad remains as Quad, one doesn't know. But as I said, the bottom line is the U.S. policy towards it.
Right, okay, we're going to have to wrap up there. Thank you so much to our special guests, Jayadeva Ranade.
Thank you.
And Namrata Hasija. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.